This is Age of Empty Wallets. My name is Gabe.
And my name is DJ.
And we're going to be talking about the combat phase in 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar. Full descriptions of the rules can be found in the core rules of the General's Handbook or the core book. And instead of just teaching you, I'm also going to be teaching DJ.
Actually, I think I'm learning a lot so far.
Yeah?
Like, I think I'm understanding how we do each phase. We just did the charging phase.
We did?
I learned shooting, movement, and shooting actually turned out to be a little bit easier than I thought it was. I don't feel ready to play yet, but I'm really excited to play.
I'm glad you said that shooting phase was a little bit easier than you thought it was, because the combat phase is a lot like the shooting phase, and we go over a lot of the same things here in the shooting phase video. Now that we have charged and we've closed the gap, we are close to our enemies, we can now do the combat phase. So the combat phase is going to be kind of a back and forth. So, and much like the Monstrous Rampage, where I did all my Monstrous Rampages and you did all of your Monstrous Rampages, we're gonna be doing, instead of all of mine, I will just do one unit, then you will do one unit, then I will do one unit, then you will do one unit, and we'll go back and forth until we're out of units to attack with.
So this is even just during your combat phase.
Every combat phase is like this.
So once it hits my turn, after you've done all of your phases, it will then go to my turn, and then I will eventually get to my combat phase, and we'll do this back and forth again.
But you will go first instead of me going first. And if I've run out of units to attack with, but you still have units left, you will do all of them in succession. So it doesn't have to be equal.
Even if it's not my turn?
Even if it's not your turn.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, pretty great. So the way that works is you have to be within 3 inches of an enemy unit.
Okay.
If you're farther than 3 inches from an enemy unit, you are not close enough for a pile-in. So a pile-in is what you will do when you choose your first unit to attack. So you must pick a unit that is within 3 inches. Now, if you remember, movement phase, you can't go any closer than 3 inches. You actually have to be outside of 3 inches. So they wouldn't count.
Right.
However, if you charged and you got within the right distance, then you can attack with those ones because they must be within half an inch. Now, as the game goes on, units will get closer because of different things. Maybe I get charged, so I'll be within the right distance, whatever the case is. Units move, and so now I'm within 2 inches and all that fun stuff. So within 3 inches, you can pile in to attack.
Perfect.
When you pile in, you will move your units 3 inches to the enemy. When you pile in, you choose an enemy to pile into.
Okay.
And you must end your pile in as close to that unit as you can. Now, if there are 2 enemy units that are close to each other, and your pile-in ends up being there, you're kind of in between them, or you're close enough to where some of your models are still in range for their attacks, you can split your attacks to attack. Let's say I've got two models that are close to one unit, and 8 of the other ones are close to another. Okay. I can have 2 of them attack one unit and 8 attack the other. But I have to make that split decision before I do any attacks.
Great. Before you do any rolling at all,
exactly.
You've got to make decisions.
So it's a risk, because let's say I'm about to kill this unit. I'm like, oh, do I do all 5 or do I just do 2 of them? 2 would kill them, but do I risk it? There's a dilemma. You got to pick. And you can't do it after you've rolled. Now that we've piled into the enemy unit, we can do our attacks. So remember, in the shooting phase, we had an attack sequence. Combat sequence is the exact same. So you have a range of how far you can attack. Yep. Usually it's an inch. But some units that are bigger, like monsters, have a 2 inch or 3 inch with their weapons. And then you have an attacks, so however many attacks that model can use with that weapon. So let's say it's a giant axe, they get 6 attacks with that axe, right? And you roll 6 dice for the 2 hit with a 3+, let's say it's a 3+. Roll 6 dice, if it's a 3 or higher, you have hit them, and then you will go on to your 2 wound. You will roll however many dice hit on let's say it's a 3+, 3 or higher, then you will also account for the rend to see if the enemy can save against that, and then they will roll their save minus the rend from their save roll, and we'll see how much damage they do. Great.
So depending on what weapon you have, you have different amount of attacks, and depending on what weapon you have, you also have like a different amount of to hit.
Yep, to hit, to wound, rend, damage.
To wound, to hit, damage.
Yep.
Great.
Exactly. And it flows the exact same as shooting phase. If they go through, if they can't save, you do damage.
Now are wounds and damage different?
No.
Okay.
So wounds and damage, the correct term is wounds. You're correct. Damage is just kind of like a universal, any game.
Those words are just interchangeable.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Just making sure.
After I've wounded the enemy unit, they will take the amount of wounds that I've inflicted and remove that from their unit. So 5 wounds. Each model has 1 wound. They'll take 5 away, and those have been slain. And if the whole unit has been slain, then huzzah, we've done it. And we'll go back and forth, and this is really where a lot of the damage comes from in Age of Sigmar, and you'll see a lot of models being removed from the table, especially in the beginning when there's lots of models still there.
Right.
And in the combat phase, you also have mortal wounds and wards, just like the shooting phase. So I can inflict mortal wounds that you cannot save against, and there's also a second, if you will, save, a ward against attacks if you have that for your army. All-out attack and all-out defense are the two command abilities that you can use in the combat phase, just like the shooting phase. So you can use those in the shooting phase or in the combat phase, meaning that it doesn't have to be yours and it doesn't have to be the enemy's.
Right.
So all that being said, DJ, do you have any questions?
I do have a question. First of all, how dare you?
Okay.
No, I'm good. No, actually, legitimately, I think I'm starting to understand this game. Like,
Perfect.
it really helps, like, knowing the shooting phase and the combat phase are really, really similar.
Yep.
But just at different ranges.
Yep. And what's really important to note about the shooting phase is that we don't go back and forth.
Right.
It is just me shooting,
Right.
but the combat phase is the back and forth.
Yeah, and we do that until all of the units have gone, and not just the amount of units that you have or I have.
Yep.
So if you have 8 units and I have 10, I get to use my last 2 even though you don't have 10. That's super, super cool.
Yep. As long as they're within range like they need to be. So while that may sound easy, there's a lot of stuff that you should look at in your Battletome. Your Battletome will have a lot of information and even some of the changes that come out. Sometimes Battletomes will have additions to what your army can do, so make sure you keep looking at that and keeping up to date with how your army plays. There's also a lot of abilities that happen in the combat phase, so it's really important to make sure that you're utilizing your army to the fullest. All right, so we talked about the fight sequence, pile-in, command abilities in the combat phase. We talked about slaying models. We talked about applying mortal wounds and wards. And we've just finished our combat phase, and we have decimated our foe. So now we're gonna go on to Battle Shock to see if they have the mental fortitude after watching all of their friends and brothers die in battle.
So would you say the battle shock is like the shock of battle?
Huh. I never thought of it that way. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment on the video, follow us on Instagram, and join our Discord.
You'll hear me in there every once in a while.
Have you joined the Discord yet?
Yes,
Have you?
I think so.
I need a firm answer. Please join the Discord.
I cannot confirm nor deny, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt, maybe.
I'm gonna start pulling my hair out.
You'll look just like your father.
No.